Window. Hello everybody, welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. My name is Kent Trammell, and today is Tuesday, which is our Blender focused day, and we have an incredibly special guest with us today, Captain Disillusion. He's a superhero first and foremost, and we know this because he has a successful YouTube channel, very successful but profoundly underrated, I would say. But he is very much on the rise right now, and he's he debunks viral videos that are faked with visual effects, and he breaks those down by showing you exactly how the effects were created, and he uses Blender. So that's kind of the connection and why we're talking with him today, and he's kind of a big deal. So with that said, Alan, how are you? And also his alter ego is Alan Melekjanian. How are you doing?
Indeed. That is who you're seeing today. Thank you for having me, Kent, so much.
Oh man, thanks for coming to the humble live stream that we run. So you doing well? You at peace with the world?
Yes, always stressing out about trying to create the next video in time for my monthly video releases. So
I can imagine so. Right. Man, well, so this is a free stream, everybody. So hopefully we're getting some of his crowd in here, also for the CG Cookie crowd. And feel free to ask questions. Those are reserved, I guess, for the CG Cookie side of it. But it is free on YouTube to watch. With that said, don't hesitate to let some questions fly for the legend himself. And so one of the first things I wanted to do, I thought we would have some fun, was you are a Blender user, and I wanted to show a clip first and foremost about people who might not know who you are. And I've asked people in the chat before we started if they knew who you were, and some did not. So I wanted to show a clip of what
some are. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it summarizes what is like at the heart of what you do for like a person like me who's into 3D, into visual effects. And so I'm gonna do that right now. And it's 3 minutes, but guys, enjoy.
Would you like to know how the trick was really done?
Yeah.
This Dan is a clever guy. First, he mentally primed us to expect something plausible by pretending his video is just a fun tutorial and starting with a stunt that looks impressive but really can be done. And once our guard was down, he unleashed a visual effect which starts simply but becomes extremely convincing once this happens. Think about it. Would you have been as impressed if the video ended here, before the camera is picked up and moved?
Not really. If the camera doesn't move, that's like photoshopping a still picture or doing an old-timey movie effect.
Exactly. He could have just added some shimmering distortion in the shape of a glass and called it a day, and that might have looked convincing in the times of Georges Méliès, but today it could be done by even the most overrated, crowd-pandering amateur visual effects artist in the world.
This is how I eat Rice Krispies.
This is how I punch people. The uninterrupted handheld camera move is what sells the whole thing. We see the water perfectly anchored to the counter in changing perspective, interacting with the light and refracting the background. There's no easy way to fake that.
So how'd he do it?
Let me introduce you to the world of 3D motion tracking. See, when the camera moves like this, it's called a nodal pan. It's not really moving at all, it's just panning and tilting across a two-dimensional view. It's pretty easy to track this kind of motion and add fake items into the scene. But when the camera actually is changing position, perspective shifts and it becomes exponentially more complicated to track. You have to know the details of the camera and the lens, track many points in the image, and then put it all together through some complicated math to calculate a virtual recreation of the camera move in 3D. Once you have that, you can do just about anything. Dan lifted an empty glass and filmed the shot with nothing on the counter, except perhaps a few well-placed markers which were later digitally removed. He tracked the shot and recreated the camera move in the 3D animation software of his choice. There, he modeled and textured the water object and, most likely, part of the counter surface, matched the lighting of the scene, and rendered the animation with the real shot projected as a background. This made it possible for the water to reflect and refract the room in a realistic-looking manner. And if that sounds too sophisticated, just take a look at the other videos on the guy's YouTube channel or his IMDb credits. He does some pretty impressive 3D animation. I'm saying that, and I'm super picky. Seriously, I nitpick everything. Speaking of which, toward the end of the shot, he had to do some manual 2D adjustments to the water, and you can see it wobble slightly. The ending is a simple transition to a separately filmed moment when he spilled real water onto the counter from off-screen. It's masked by a few frames of the CG water collapsing, which, if you look closely, is a pretty basic 2D composite of a still image of the water simply scrolling down. Do you understand now?
All right, that's one of my favorite clips from your channel, and you guys should have. Oh, and I didn't even think about this. You weren't able to see that, were you?
I wasn't, but I could hear, so I know which part it was. Wasn't that demonstration water simulation in reverse? Wasn't that the most realistic simulation you've ever seen? Wasn't it perfect?
I mean, yeah, of course it was, but no, it was incredible. Like, and you Blender heads in here you probably saw Blender. You saw the level of complexity involved in that. Not only to recreate the effect, but like to erase the YouTube elements to like showcase like how to do that effect. That's very next level in my opinion. You really know what you're doing, and that's what's so intriguing about your channel to me, is how you're able to make visual effects kind of cool and clever and hip, so to speak.
Well, yeah, it's. I guess that's the fun of it for me as well. Like, it's all about the visuals, it's all about the details. So it's fun to like go in there and like add another layer of effects of like undoing the creator's effects and then redoing them and kind of like putting it all up. I've been doing this for a while now, and I've never really had the opportunity to like talk to the person beforehand or get any like special materials or anything. A lot of what I do involves just reverse engineering things, I guess.
Sure.
Like, better to do it yourself, because then I do it in a way that is best suited for explaining it and doing it for like a general audience instead of experts,
Right. I'm curious about your audience. Do you find that they are more like hardcore VFX people, like maybe that I would be counted, or more normal like people?
No, I think I get a lot of normals, the normies. It's funny because I try to do sometimes little tutorials myself, and I think I have a few people in my on my Patreon and just general audience that like that, but a lot of people they say that, oh, I don't do effects or I don't do animation, but I'm just enjoying like what you're explaining. It sounds fun and complicated, but
right.
I think my appeal is more general, but I like to do something for everyone. I like some of my videos go a little bit more technical and like dive deep, but generally I try to make it not too alien for just someone who's never heard of anything related to post-production.
Right. I suspected that because you seem like you're doing for visual effects what like Bill Nye did for science for me. Is that fair? What do you think about that?
I think, yeah, it's true. I think I've subconsciously, or not so subconsciously, kind of used those kinds of shows as a model for what I do. I mean, I had Beakman's World in one episode, another
incredible
for kids. That was a lot of fun. So I mean, I definitely tap into that vibe. And sometimes, maybe I'm not as consistent. Sometimes I'm trying to be very grown up about it. Other times it seems like it's for babies, like, someone who's never turned on a TV before. But I don't know. Yeah, it's fun to. I think like I'm driven by some sort of desire to like bring people into visual effects and make them interested in it. Maybe younger people. So that's kind of what everything is. This one want to look more into animation or visual effects or composite.
Sure. Well, for whatever it's worth, like what I've learned about just having talked to Alan for a few minutes is he's extremely humble. And for someone who does what you describe, being able to get people interested in VFX, for people who don't know anything about it, like you could be much more simple. And a lot of times you like blow my mind, and I've kind of been in this world my entire career. So to your credit, like you don't no expenses spared basically when you create these effects and explain them. So incredible work. Now, since you are a Blender user to some degree, I was skeptical, let's say, about just how much of a Blender user you were. So I've created this quiz to test your Blender skills.
This is my least favorite part of the website, but I know we need to do it to learn thing.
There you go.
Get through that quiz to get to the next video.
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, this is where we're going to either debunk you or prove you legitimate. So we'll start out here with number one. Though untitled in the user interface, the in panel, as it's commonly called, is technically called A, viewport parameters, B, viewport properties panel, C, object transforms panel, or D, Blender settings part 2.
The answer is B, view properties panel.
Well, fair enough. All right, we started easy. They do get harder, I promise. Number 2, and that is correct, by the way. Number 2, Blender features a unique default mouse button selection mechanic. And by default, which mouse button selects objects in the viewport?
The right C, right mouse button.
Okay,
I know.
yeah.
I just last week got used to it finally.
Oh, so that...
I know enough trivia to even know that you, or maybe I'm wrong, I think you have it remapped that you have a left mouse button selection.
That's right. You're right. And that was going to be my question. Which are you? Because they're very split camps about it.
Yeah, I approached Blender humbly, and I didn't want to change and customize anything before really learning the basics. So I stick with the right mouse button selection, and now I'm too much into it to change.
It's arguably the more respectable choice. I did not have that determination going into it, but
taking a stand. I'm in that camp now. That's it. It's official.
Okay, I'm completely good for you. Yeah. So number 3, by default, Blender saves duplicates of your .blend scene file to remedy against crashes. What are the extensions of these files? I won't read them. There's a lot there. So
I already see it. I believe it's A, blend 1, blend 2. I've never even seen blend 2. I always see that blend 1 file, and I've had to resort to it once.
Okay.
In a very terrible situation. Am I right?
No, that's exactly what it's for. And maybe I was wrong about the default. I always get 2 copies, but maybe it is just the 1. I might have changed that years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. All right. 100% so far. You've met the bar, I would say, as far as your Blender usage.
I felt like...
All right, number 4. This is the last easy one before we get to the hard ones. So Blender features 2 alternative hotkey maps based on other familiar 3D apps. Which are they? Maya and ZBrush, Daz 3D and XSI, Modo and Lightwave, or Maya and 3ds Max?
This is so detailed. I mean, I'm gonna guess it's D, but then ZBrush users are all into Blender sometimes too. I'm going to stick with D, but I'm probably wrong.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's only accessible, if I recall, maybe it's not, but in the splash screen, you have the option to change from Blender default. But well done, well done. You also, this means you have knowledge of other apps, so your respect is growing. All right, now we get serious. Number 5, who is the original mastermind behind the Cycles render engine?
Oof. This is where it gets difficult. I know who Talon is. I know what D is. Okay, it sounds like the kind of thing that a Russian, Eastern European person would come up with. So maybe C?
Sergey? Hey, that's a really good guess. It's actually B, Brecht von Lommel. But Sergey is one of the most active developers, so is a very good guess. And to your credit, I guess Cycles isn't mentioned alongside Brecht that often anymore because he did it so long ago. But hey, you didn't get it right.
Well established, but cool. Good. I learned something.
There you go. Yeah, educational. All right, number 6. There are 2 places to make an object a cloth object for simulation. What places are they?
It's B, modifier panel, and physics panel.
That's correct. That's correct. That was kind of, I guess, an easy one because you do some cloth sim, but I'm just trying to bring
Well,
you down
that's
some
exactly
pegs.
right, because it's one of the, I think for all of us, simulation is one of those things that is there. You tried it once and then you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
You need to look it up the next time. That's what I did. I just did my last video, and that involved a lot of cloth simulation, so that's why it's fresh on my mind.
Well, good, man. That worked out for you. But yeah, what you described is exactly like fluid sim and smoke sim and all that for me. But
Yeah.
all right, I think this is the last one. Oh, there was one more. All right, number 7. You want to add a driver to a parameter. Describe how you add the driver, what color denotes the driver, and where do you tweak that driver's settings?
Okay, this is the thing I know the least about. I know it looks purple when it's
That's right.
that part I know. The driver, literally the only driver thing I ever knew how to do is before they added the feature to randomize the grain for the
Right.
render.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, it's a pound sign.
Yeah,
is
you're
it?
right. You're right. Hey, you're in the realm. You're in the realm. So that was one of the most harder. That was one of the harder questions. So I didn't even, for some reason, I thought that might be in your wheelhouse, just given how much like procedural kind of animation
I use a
you do.
lot of expressions in After Effects, but like that's the thing I really want to get into in Blender, because I hate doing a lot of stuff manually. I do
Yeah.
a lot of animation and stuff.
Yeah.
You got.
Totally.
I'm gonna look up the courses available.
It's all fun, man. So number 8, these are current Blender buzzwords. Can you describe the significance of each?
Well, I'll try. Eevee is like the thing you see all over your Twitter feed because everyone's like sharing screenshots of a thing I don't have access to and I don't know, but it's like viewport rendering.
That's right.
It's all ray traced and realistic looking, right?
That's right.
I have no idea. I've never heard this. Do you want to explain what that is, or should I go on? Well, I mean, 2.8 is the next greatest release.
That's right.
And Grease Pencil is all the Grease Pencil tools and the cool short that just came out, Hero, right? That's
Bingo.
using more advanced, like allowing you to do full-on 2D animation stuff. It's
Hey,
very-
that's impressive. That's really impressive. Flip Fluids is an add-on right now that's really leveling up Blender's fluid simulation stuff. Yeah. But hey, 3 out of 4, that's impressive. And overall, someone was keeping track. I think you got like 7 out of 8, average. So that was, hey, I think you're considered a Blender power user as far as we're concerned. So
okay, lucky there.
Yeah. When I
of anything I've ever not failed, so great.
Good deal. When I first reached out to you about doing the stream, I had mentioned talking about Blender, and you were like, "Well, I'm not really a power user," and I'm like, and then I look at your videos, and I'm like, "Wait, something's not adding up." So anyway, that's why I wanted to test you.
It's funny, yeah. I really still feel that way. We were just chatting before we started officially. That I mean, I tried to compile a montage of all the shots that I ever used Blender in on Captain Disillusion. And I was like, yeah, it's just going to be a few quick examples I could show. And it ended up being like minutes. It's like over 12 minutes. And I realized I've been using Blender increasingly ever since 2015 or so.
Okay,
and
yeah.
point where I almost used it on like 95% of all videos last year. And so far this year, I've used Blender in all of my episodes, all the 3 episodes that I've done. So
Since
I guess I'm a Blender power user. I don't know how it happened.
Since 2015, that's a while, I would say. I mean, I probe my the people who watch my other streams like during classes, and I'm like, if 2 to 3 years, I consider like advanced if you've been using it consistently. So
Yeah, but I mean, like for me, it's like one of the things that I do in the overall process. So like I'm trying to, write my videos, film them, do compositing, and then like Blender is a tool
Right.
that is in the toolbox that I'm, sometimes there'll be times where I kind of like haven't used it in a while and I got to brush up again.
Mhm.
But I'm finding more and more that it's like one of my main go-to things.
Right.
If I start getting into like the compositing and editing, video editing portions of it, then I'm just going to like fully switch into a Blender, all in Blender inbox.
So on that topic, like what are your apps? What are your tools in your back pocket?
I mostly everything's centered around After Effects, like for most people. That's where I do all the compositing and all the like anything to do with effects or any kind of explanatory graphics. I just try to make it in After Effects, and if I can't, I resort to other apps. I edit my video, like just the filmmaking part of things. I shoot and I edit the videos in Avid, like
Yeah.
old school. I went to film school. I'm like traditionalist with that stuff. So Avid Media Composer is where I deal with the footage. I export that into After Effects. After Effects is sort of like the final online version of the video, but I export pieces to, do things in Photoshop, just the creative suite in general, the
Yeah.
Photoshop, After
Okay.
Effects. There will be sometimes once in a blue moon video related things that can't be done in Media Composer for some reason. So I'll do Premiere.
Mhm.
Yeah, Blender is one of those. So I don't know if we're going to get into history of things.
Let's do
Actually, yes. Before I knew Blender existed, maybe before Blender existed, period, I used Lightwave 3D for 3D animation.
Okay.
That's something I do in high school in the late 90s. We had this video toaster thing. I don't know if you know what that is.
it. I don't. What is that?
It's Newtek. Newtek is the company that made
Right.
Lightwave, and they have that whatever their thing is called now, the that you use for live streaming and video switching.
Yeah.
That was the first version of that. It was one of the only desktop like video editing / live production
Okay.
systems. It was an Amiga computer with like a dedicated software installed in it, and you could do video editing tape to tape
Right.
and do amazing things. And that's what we had in school. And I realized one day there's a little button there that says 3D, and that took you straight into this program called Lightwave 3D, which they, at the time, I realized after looking at some magazines and stuff, they used for all the newly 3D effects in like sci-fi shows like Babylon 5 and the later Star Trek
Yeah.
shows. I was like, okay, I'm sold. I have access to this software at school for free. My teacher has some VHS tapes of tutorials of how to use that stuff. So I got all into it, and Lightwave was my app of choice for a few years. But then, things upgrade. It was before the age of like subscription software. So it was very expensive. It was very difficult to keep up with the new versions of stuff.
Right.
And I do 3D every day. So it's like I just kind of eventually like let go of Lightwave, and then eventually I needed to do a lot of 3D again with my web series. So I was like looking around and I found Blender, and it was like, of course, why wouldn't you? It's the perfect solution.
Okay. Wow.
That's how I
Lightwave. Okay. Someone called me a young gun because I admittedly, I've only used Lightwave a little bit. When I was in college, I went on a spree of installing all 3D apps that I could possibly get my hands on. But I think I modeled like a coffee cup in there or something. But
gotta
and
go
that,
through that. Lightwave is one of those. I was such a Lightwave snob for so long because it's one of those. The philosophy in that software, it kind of feels like they're treating it like the real world, like a movie set. Everything is based on real world measurements.
interesting.
There's a separate app for the modeling part and the animation. I was like, yeah, like here is the shop where I make things, and here is where I animate. To mix them together is disgusting. But now I'm so past that. Blender does it nicely, and that's the only way to work.
Gosh, it's easy to become snobby over the software.
Yeah, well, it's it's that snobbiness that is formed from I just know this one thing, so of course it's superior because it's the one.
Right. Right. A quick question for you, a little bit of a shift gear. This is from Omar. Are you at the point where people recognize you on the street and stop you?
No. Well, it is like very extremely rare and is coincidental. Like the Starbucks I frequent, the barista there knew who I was. One day, like asked, "Are you Captain Disillusion?" This is a very unusual situation, and it made me like feel weird to go to that Starbucks, although I still go there.
Okay.
It's just nice to be like to go where everybody knows your name. No, mostly that doesn't. I don't think I'm. I mean, by YouTube like world standards, I'm not a big, huge YouTuber.
Okay.
Really not, and like I don't get recognized in the street. And I think my audience is a little bit niche in a way. It's like nerds, whether they're into graphics or not. I'm sorry. There's a cat that is trying to
Hey, it's cool.
do a
What's your cat's name?
Sonia
Sonia.
camera, and I think she's been trying to upstage me. But, yes. So, but anyway, what I was going to lead up to is where this does happen is at like conferences. Sometimes in the past, I still do it sometimes, but I go to like science and skepticism and critical thinking conferences like
Right.
that, or like real hardcore nerds. And there, it's like weird. It's like being in a version of the universe where I'm like an A-lister or something, where everybody like comes up and knows who I am because
Yeah.
it's a very group.
Uh-huh.
That's funny.
How
to
do you
feel.
deal with that?
Well, it's very pleasant, but it makes me realize that like I'm not sure that's something I'd want to be part of my reality at all times. I don't want to be on like a proper, Brad Pitt level or something where like your existence is now like not something where you could just go out in public.
Right, right.
I don't
Yeah,
know
that
that's
seems that could have some problems that come with it for sure. A couple other questions that have rolled in real quick. Let's see. Do you do your own face paint?
Oh yeah, I do. That's all now. I'm trying to convince her to be an artist and do it for me, so I can learn my lines. And I mean, she's down, but I end up doing it myself anyway because I'm such a control freak, I guess. And yeah, I got it down to a reasonable time. It takes like 15 to 20 minutes for me to do it, even though it looks ridiculous. Like a professional makeup artist could probably do that in like 3 minutes. But yes.
I've never met a professional makeup artist, but 15 minutes sounds pretty fast. I mean, there's a lot of little details in that, in the breakup, the transition.
It's just the design. I think I talked about this on H3. Like it's a result of me being bad at it. And it's like, okay, I was just trying to do a straight line, but it's crooked. So I'm going to add some streaks and this and that. And I was going to just do everything silver, but it was too hard to do the eyes. So
So-
a very utilitarian sort of design that is supposed to have has like a backwards engineered meaning that is just convenience.
Oh, okay. That was going to be one of my questions. Was there a meaning behind the like? I got like a glass half empty kind of thing, but
Well, I mean, that is maybe if it was subconscious, but like I said, it's like it's easy to it's very tempting for me to come up and like Star Wars style, George Lucas style, like reverse claim like a lot of thought behind things that were maybe a little on by the seat of my pants.
right.
But I try not to do that because to keep up with the spirit of my show and my attitude is like, here's what's really going on.
Hmm.
I was just looking for a crazy look to stand out on YouTube in those early days, and I thought it was interesting. I don't know, it was a sci-fi-ish thing, and
Yeah.
I tried one thing and just didn't change it or improve it at all, and just stuck with it stubbornly for a decade.
Man, yeah, I would say it's iconic. Definitely. Like I've never seen. I can't off the top of my head think anything like it. But speaking of the decade, like that blew me away when I realized you've been doing your channel for 10 years. Like, how long did you hustle, so to speak, on the channel before it started like taking off?
Well, I'm not a good example of like sort of a YouTube success story if you look at it all at once, because I didn't have a good or a serious attitude about it for a long time. So a lot of those 10 years is just like, I'm a dude on there. I do a couple of videos a year. Like there've been a couple of years where I literally made one video. So
Okay.
if you could count that like as a proper career, but I did get a significant recognition, like a moderate amount of recognition, but it was so long ago where YouTube was a much smaller place.
Yeah.
So it was more meaningful to have like a little bit more views. And it's just, it makes a difference when you have that from the start. And yeah, like, but then it's really been, like I said, around 2015, where I kind of sat down and said, okay, I'm going to do this like a real thing.
Yeah.
And I started Patreon and like the whole campaign and doing one video a month. And that's where, I don't know if it's coincidence that it actually really took off, but probably being more serious about it, being more forthcoming with the audience, and creating content on a regular basis just like makes it work a little better. Who knew?
Yeah. And
Lacking up to get results, apparently.
and that's your full-time gig, right? Like since
It has
2015.
recently become, like, again, thanks to mainly to Patreon, but just overall growth as well.
Yeah.
Just in the last year and a half, I like gradually, and I was fortunate because I was working as a freelancer and as an editor at a company as a video editor.
Okay.
And it just kind of worked out where like that job was gradually less demanding for me. Like
Yeah.
only volume of work, and my freelance work was controllable, where I could just kind of take less and less stuff as this was taking off. So it was a nice gentle jump into that boat, you know.
Right.
So far so good, you know. But as working as a freelance sort of YouTube creator is definitely, you get that feeling of like this could all go away at any time, and you have to be mindful of like what you're creating and what you're going to be creating in the future. How's it all going to work?
Right. So like what is your production like? Well, the quality is off the charts. I mean, in a lot of interviews with you and on the H3 podcast, you mentioned that your I believe that's where you mentioned that your production quality stands out way above a lot of your fellow YouTubers. So like, I mean, how did you develop that? Or I can't say that I've seen your first video, but like, did you start out with that kind of professionalism?
I think my first videos are terrible, and I'm one of those people. I think most people are like this, that make stuff that, you know, creative people. Like I can't look at my thing a month later. Like not that I am so much better, but I do feel like that. Like, oh, look, all I see when I'm looking at my old stuff is the mistakes, and that I can do such a better job now. But I don't know. I suppose yes, the quality of my videos objectively was probably like above back in the day what was on YouTube. It is not above anything now if you look, but it was exactly the same. Like the style of the videos remained. So I was fresh out of film school, out of college, and like not a lot of ideas and a lot of prospects.
Okay.
And I just tried to. It's like, so it was an exercise. It was a testing ground for like applying my skills. I didn't just do it to vlog or to
Interesting.
just mess around with the computer. Like I thought, okay, this is a platform for creating something, putting it out. So from the start, my attitude was to like create a little finished piece of something. And I didn't really engage in like the YouTube sort of culture and approach to things for a long time, like literally till just a couple of years ago, where I'm like, even if you watch my videos, I never acknowledge like other YouTubers or that this is even on a particular video platform or anything. So I think I was just, again, it's like some sort of snobbishness of like, hey, look at me, I'm a big filmmaker creating art here.
I love that your sarcasm dealing with those things, like, hey, click these buttons, you know, go here. I don't know, that's fresh to me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to make fun of things that you actually need, and
right.
Make fun of people you respect and make fun of things you don't think are stupid. I don't know. There's something weirdly fun about that to me, because some people don't get like the style of it, and like they get offended. Like audiences get offended on behalf of other entities that I'm making fun of. I think it's funny, but like the audience thinks, how could you make fun of that person or whatever? We need end screens. They're a thing.
So another thing that I personally like about the channel, and like I'm just showering you with compliments. I hope that you are used, just accept it. But you have an ability to like have this heart underneath it all, and like your salutation or whatever is love with your heart and use your mind for everything else. Like you do end up seeing that there's like a sensitive side to your videos, especially certain ones more than other ones. But like, how do you how? I mean, it's an incredible balance that you managed to strike. I don't know if it's so much a question as much as just an observation, but I mean, that keeps me coming back. I love seeing that.
Well, thank you. That part, it's not like, I guess that's just my personality, hopefully showing through, that I have that kind of, that's probably how I think about stuff, is like, I try to put on like a sarcastic front, but I'm kind of like, I don't know, gentle about everything, and want everybody to have a good time, and I don't know, I just want everything to be nice and good and safe and good, like deep inside, but I'm just trying to hide it the whole time. That's just like, that's how it comes out.
Right.
I'm not carefully sitting there engineering like, this should make people feel pathos at this point, but so I'm really glad that happens. If it happens.
I think it's very commendable. Yeah. Okay, we got a couple questions for you. Actually, a lot, but I'm trying to sift through them. Let's see. I think I've. Okay, so this one's from Omar. Will you do another science mash a la Beekman, maybe with CGP Grey or Destin from Smarter Every Day? I don't know all of those. Do you?
I just did. I clearly I'd want to do that. I just did a video a couple of months ago where I was like impersonating all of these science educators and YouTubers. So yeah, I'm down for that. I mean, I feel like everyone's still like everyone's bigger and higher profile than me, but they're all super nice people, and it's a matter of them being willing. I mean, I've spoken to Destin about collabing and stuff. It'd be fun. Like it just has to be figured out. And I'm in the East Coast. I'm in Florida.
Oh, okay.
I feel a little bit removed from like the hotbed of everyone.
Sure.
You know, people are on the West Coast and some people are out of the country.
Right.
It's like, how do you collaborate remotely? You got to be like creative and weird about it.
Right.
But yeah, next time I'm in the vicinity of some kind of YouTuber who is compatible, like with my content, or we compatible with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. I don't think I knew that you were in Florida. I would have guessed LA, but
Right, I have that LA vibe.
that's
about
right.
me.
Yeah, yeah. Your VFX skills are like LA quality. Here's another one for you. What did you do before you started debunking videos?
I was just trying to be a movie director. I did, as I mentioned, like I kind of knew I wanted to do something. I wanted to be an animator, like traditional animators, when I was younger. And when the time came, or to back up, later in high school, I went to this high school that had like a pretty advanced TV production
Okay.
program, like a studio. So I didn't know exactly, you know, whether I'd go into television, but that was something I definitely went for. Our school had sort of like majors like a college, but it was like a school. And then when it came time to go to college, I went to like an art school,
Okay.
had both computer animation and a film program.
Right.
And I was all set to go for computer animation, but at the very last second, like on the second day of school, I switched my major because I figured, even though it wasn't like a world of video sharing or tutorials online back then,
Right.
books and things, and I really always felt like computers I'm okay with sitting down and figuring out how some software works. And principles of animation and stuff like that I know from a little bit from like the classical approach. So but filmmaking and shooting stuff and things you need other people for, and you need sort of teamwork, I had no idea. Like I'm like such a recluse and stuff. So I wanted to learn. And also at the time, you know, people didn't have HD cameras and whatever. You had to go to a school or someplace to get
Right.
access, your hands on all that gear.
Right.
I went to film school for film production, and that's sort of my degree is in film. And I did all the things, the little short films and thesis films. Then I just came straight out of that into just freelancing. Whoever needs whatever, I could edit, I could shoot, I would just do commercials and music videos here.
Right.
A lot of time like erasing boom poles and whatever from fancy rap videos that are shot in Miami, you know. Yeah, like so right before becoming a YouTuber full time, I worked at a company that produced like a full time, or I worked full time at a company that produced a web series for teenagers, like this sort
Okay.
of about pop stars and people trying to become singers and whatnot.
Okay.
So yeah, the short answer is I just like stumbled around whoever needs whatever, and I just tried to become an expert in everything.
Okay.
A little.
Right. Okay. I was going to ask you a question. So you mentioned like how many people are involved in video production. I wanted to ask you this about your production. Like, are you alone or do you have some teammates?
I generally, technically, I'm alone, and now I just like we're speaking at a crossroads right now because I just kind of like reached a benchmark and Patreon where I am now able to maybe expand and work with other people. So I'm learning to do that. I'm figuring out ways to do that. But really, everything I've done that you can see so far has been by myself. But there are times like when I'm doing something insanely big, like the Beekman episode, like I know some people from freelancing and from school that I would just call in as like a one-time team to like, let's shoot this, let's record audio, all that.
Wow. Okay.
But generally it's like, it used to be in the early days, just my dad would film, would do camera and film me.
Yes.
It's my girlfriend who is like, who I'm trying to train to be a perfect camera person, and she doesn't really, her main passion, but she does a really great job and loves to help me.
Right.
But it's like a homemade thing, and I'm just trying to. It's a little bit tough on when the filming aspect of it is like trying to keep everything in my head and being like this crazy director and also being on camera. But after that's over, it's just me, literally 100%. It's just sitting at a computer
Yeah.
once I'm editing, compositing, doing some. Occasionally, I've used one of those like where you can get websites where you can hire a freelancer to do some rotoscoping or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Really try to be picky with that, and when I'm really desperate and there's just no time, I'll outsource it to someone I've never met.
Right.
Raise my hand for 500 frames. I'm not going to sit there and do that for 2 weeks.
See, that is staggering that you work alone with you achieve the production quality that you have basically alone. That's incredible. And one thing that I thought was going to be fun about talking to you, especially for the CG Cookie crowd, is that there's, I think, a lot of people here who want to do what they want to do and like kind of live out what their aspirations and things. I'm certainly that way too. It was part of one of the reasons I left like the animation industry is like I just felt like a digital Etch-a-Sketch, for someone else's aspirations and stuff. And so I wanted to talk to you just to see like what you could do on your own with the knowledge that you described. Like you call it a general knowledge of things, but you're actually very, very skilled. But like that's super empowering, I think, to see what you've been able to achieve by yourself.
Thank you. I don't feel like it's like I don't consider myself a very organized person or a very like savvy, like planning wise and strategy wise. Like I'm definitely not business minded. Like, I think someone who has maybe had access to everything I've been fortunate to have access to and like able to learn, probably like do better, like be in a better place than me. But I'm happy to like just like whatever. I'm trying a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and like wherever it takes me is where it takes me. I haven't into like this high powered like business and a brand and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean so the reason I say that is that to me, from my perspective, it feels like very gradual. Like I didn't set out to learn this is all the things I need to know. I need to know how to do 3D. I need to learn how to do editing in this program. It's just like I learned one thing at a time that I was interested in and kept applying it. Like it's just a matter of finding weird, goofy ways to apply it, like making a web series where you paint your face. And then that becomes like a thing you do. You don't even know that you know how to do it. You're just like, that's how I make videos. I don't going out of my way to do something special, but I'm just for me, making videos is this, like making a YouTube video is like, I light the thing. I try to make the sound good.
Yeah.
I think, how is it going to play? Like, is it going to be too boring or whatever?
Right.
So, yeah, like, so I mean, I don't think of it as that special, but I'm glad, like, I think it's a good way to approach stuff is just like learn one thing at a time and keep applying it while you're learning other things. And before you be real good.
Right. It's probably good for you to not think you're special, but everybody here, me included, thinks you're pretty special. But a question for you: how well did the H3 podcast help with channel growth? Their general audience didn't seem to be into VFX. Is a question from Dennis.
To connect to the fact that I'm so not business savvy, I haven't really sat and looked at like numbers, but I am certain. I mean, I did feel generally like there was a huge amount of exposure, and they're awesome. It was very kind of them to have me on. And I was telling you before the stream, like I didn't know because it's agreed upon. It's like I was invited in advance, and I knew what would happen, and I knew who they were, but I didn't appreciate the scale of like their hugeness and success and stuff. I was treated to slowly realizing it as the date of this live stream approached. So it was no pressure at all.
Right.
It's going to be live in front of like millions, basically. I'm not sure how big, but it's about that. And yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I'm sure it made a huge difference. I think my the main metric, I guess, would be YouTube subscribers. They really grew.
Yeah.
And
I had to edit.
It's a big, huge, internationally viewed show. You should agree, and no matter how shy and reserved you might feel, you should probably agree and do it.
That's good advice for when everybody here hits it big. So that's interesting. I had to edit the stream description because before, well, when I initially posted, it was less than 700, and then after, I checked the other day and it was over. So like I've definitely seen some growth following that. But I wanted to ask you, like, as you do get bigger and your audience grows, I can imagine that there's some pressure about content to create, how often to create it, how much. Do you feel that, and how do you deal with it?
I don't feel pressure to create more content, but I in my case, it happens to be something's happening right now that I'm discovering that is, it's somehow more difficult to make the same amount of content at the same speed. Maybe it's my weird, like, trying to top myself thing of creating, like, even when I don't think I'm making something, like the next episode is more complicated, somehow in some behind the scenes aspects, it is more complicated.
Right.
So I'm noticing myself, I mean, not just noticing, it's evidence based. Like I am being like a little bit late and lagging behind my schedule, which is like terrible, but I'm doing my best to keep up. And that's what's cueing me into the fact that I should probably start working with other people and delegating things and trying to make it more of a team effort.
Right.
But I know but my genre, you could say, is like not very typical of like what I make. I'm in a way, I'm sort of making little short films. It is what it is. Like you have to write it, you have to plan it and shoot it and edit it and do effects. But other people, like if I was a gamer, like a live stream person, or I was just doing vlogs or something else, or I was doing some kind of purely animated series, it would be completely different requirements.
Right.
So it's for everybody. And I think in some of those genres, no matter what it takes to make it, you have to do it. Like a vlog should be weekly, probably, right? No one's going to watch a vlogger that's once a month. It seems like certain genres have certain cadences that are appropriate. So yeah, I think from my personal sort of thing to learn and to be better at is to somehow do the same thing more efficiently.
Okay.
So I create room behind the scenes to make more stuff, or even just like not pass out every day from, like, as the month gets to the end, I'm like basically stopping sleeping.
Right.
And just
gosh.
got to be like more evened out somehow.
Yeah. Okay. A question from a user, Primero. Let's see, do you ever get bored doing the same thing after 10 years? Like the same niche, I guess. Do you get bored with it?
I don't get bored, but I do find it challenging. This is Sonia, by the way.
Hello, Sonia. Man, she's cute.
Thanks. Yes, sorry, that really derailed my brain. I apologize.
Hey, it happens, man. The question: do you ever get bored doing the same thing after 10 years?
I don't want to say I get bored, but I find it difficult I feel like sort of insecurity to try to come up with new stories. Like it's a series, right? It's the same character and stuff. And like any long running show, like on TV, I always think, how do they come up with new situations, new plots, and new approaches to things? I feel pressure with that because I do find like my brain doesn't hold a lot, and I've repeated jokes and things where I thought like, oh, this is so clever, I'm gonna say this, or it's gonna be centered around this idea, like that I'm mad that I don't have views or something, and I'm like, and then I see that I did that like so much before, so a little bit scary to discover that and to feel like, well, gee, is the well running dry?
Right.
But other times I look back like I said, I don't like to look back at the things I made, but if I check like how's the thing doing from last week, and I kind of maybe I felt like I barely got this done and it's all right when I finished, but now I'm looking at last week's thing and it's like, this is pretty good. This is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I still have it. Like I can't trust my ability to judge if what I'm doing is good or not anymore. But of course, yes, as a person who literally has been making the same, putting on the same makeup, doing the same kind of thing for over 10 years now, I want to do other side projects and maybe like just outside completely of Captain Disillusion, or at least some other stuff with the channel where it's like, here's some videos that are nothing to do with explaining effects.
Right.
And I don't know if people want that or not, but some people say that would be awesome. Just do some adventure things with the character.
Right.
When I do that, when I lean into that and don't explain a lot, they're like, sorry, I subscribe to this because I wanted you to debunk effects and I don't care about this other stuff. Don't get political. Please don't do too much stupid story and characters.
Right.
You know,
Well,
in the end, you can just do it's your channel, you know?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Right. I've heard you say it a couple times that in your videos, like, my hope is that if I do what I love and they're good, like people will come and see it. And I mean, that seems to be absolutely true. You seem ahead of the curve on like burning out, basically.
Oh, well, ahead of the curve. Oh, like, yeah, like I'm equipped to not burn out. I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. I feel like there's stuff to say. And I'm just like, if anything, I feel like I'm not doing well enough to service this franchise better. Like I need to think outside the box and be creative and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there's more.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, like I binged your videos to like get in the mindset of talking to you, and like not once did I feel like, okay, we're starting to see the same sort of things. Not at all. Like, I mean, some stories or some videos have like, it's funny how they weave in and out of like a bigger narrative, and that seems like a new thing that I've noticed, and that's really fun and switches up the gears, and it's like, oh yeah, I was interested in the VFX, but I just enjoyed that story.
Great.
So yeah, you're doing a good job keeping variety and things like that. You also you've released a couple tutorials, Blender tutorials, right?
Yeah, I made one public. There are a few tutorials, which is something. It's like a reward on Patreon that I do, and I put one out publicly. It was from a couple of years ago, but I was so like behind on my schedule. I was like, I feel like I owe the audience something, so I just kind of unprivated one of those tutorials. Yeah, I find maybe it's because I've watched so many Blender tutorials, yours included, that Blender is fun to make tutorials about. Do you find that? I mean, I've done After Effects tutorials in this Patreon thing.
Okay.
But Blender is just, I don't know what it is. It's fun to like show off on Blender or something. And because I find myself, it's funny, it's almost embarrassing to talk to you about it because I probably have almost practically impersonated you and other instructors that I've seen do tutorials on Blender. Because it's like things that certain actions and certain operations like make you think of like how you learned it and who spoke those words.
Funny. Right. Right.
It's funny. I do like hear your voice in my head when I'm thinking of how to explain something.
Well, that's flattering. My goodness. But to teach implies that like what I love about your channel is that your education is very legitimate. Like even though it might be over some people's heads, you really are teaching true VFX techniques. And now for you to actually make that's kind of edutainment. But like to do a tutorial, like you really want people to know how to do this stuff.
Yeah, I do feel a little bit like fraudulent when I make tutorials because I haven't done it a lot. But like, it is, you don't want to. I have the luxury almost in my regular videos to kind of get things wrong because it's like an overview, and sometimes I'll just like straight up misquote something and whatever. But like, it's not the end of the world. But you don't want to do that in tutorials. I mean, I've seen plenty of legitimate tutorials where someone says something, oh, this works like this, but they don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt anything. It's just they don't want to sound like they're not knowledgeable.
Right.
But I think good tutorial, you want to feel like the instructor knows the thing inside and out.
For sure.
Not the best thing to do, which is how I do it, is like, I just learned how to do this thing. I've done it on one project. Let me now teach you how, I'm the biggest expert on this. But maybe that's just normal, and you have to have the confidence to, as long as you're explaining correct information, it doesn't matter if you yourself didn't know how to do it last week.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
There is possibility there, right?
You're right. Right. No, I've for the first several years that I did this, I like suffocated under the pressure of feeling like I need to be the objective truth, no holes in any explanation that I teach about Blender. And then recently, I don't know, I think my suspicion is that people want to learn how you know it. And not everybody, but a lot of people want to know how Captain Disillusion goes about the process. Not so much like, is this the objective truth? That's to say you can't just like teach willy-nilly, but like it helped me to be like teach what I know confidently because it's worked for me. If there is a better way to do it, like be open, don't argue with them. But like people want to come and see what you know about it. So I think to that point, your tutorials are very valuable because we've seen what you can do with it. And I want to know how you approach the tools. I don't care if they're the best way or not.
Subscribe to cgcookie.com and learn the lessons. That's how I know my stuff.
That's a very nice plug for you.
But I will just say, because I'm seeing in the chat people making fun of the AOVs. Look, I just want to say I'm sorry. All right, that's an example of a thing I get wrong. Like I dyslexically mistyped the order of those letters, but it's arbitrary. What is it?
I forget, man. I've only know the initials.
Yeah. But it's render layers that are not to be used as visual renders, depth and whatever. All right, I put 2 letters in the wrong place. I am sorry. In the future home video release of this will be corrected. I'm sure. Right. But by the way, even those words falling in that shot were done in Blender as well. Like that whole episode is done in Blender almost.
So. Yeah. On the topic of Blender, someone asked, do you ever plan on going to like a Blender conference in the future?
Yes, I might. Don't know. I'm thinking about it. I talk to people that maybe I will perhaps maybe be at a Blender conference, whether, in like an official capacity or just as a fan of Blender like everyone else. I think it'd be fun. I have never been to one before. Yeah. So it would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty incredible talk if you were to go, not just to have fun, but to talk as well. All right, so a couple of questions I've seen, I'll wrap them into one, but someone asked about your timeline for your projects, like creating a video. And then another person just asked, how long did it take to shoot all the shots and scenes in the Chinese invisibility cloak hoax? And then he says destroyed in all caps, because I think that's what your title was. So like maybe describe what your timeline's like and use that video for like an example.
Well, a timeline, yes. So a timeline, that video was late. It was one of the few recent ones that was late. So it's not a good example of a timeline. But basically, like, the idea is to do it in a month. And embarrassingly, often, I apologize for this creature crawling around.
It's good. Sonya's good.
I spend up to 2 weeks, up to half the time, like sitting and figuring and writing the script essentially, and like figuring out what it's going to be. That is not to say I'm like sitting there figuring out if it's a video I'm explaining, like, how was this done? I probably just know like right away.
Right. At this point, surely.
It's building. It's like, okay, in my brain, this is a 1-word explanation, and I just need to build a video out of it. And I'll spend like a week or two, between 1 and 2 weeks, like sitting there, going to Starbucks, sitting at home, typing out like an actual movie script in Final Draft software of the story, like how it's going to be on the screen.
Right.
Then I pick a day, and most of the time, there's not a lot happening visually, film, like camera-wise, so I just pick a day when we can all gather, or whoever's involved can gather, shoot the thing in one afternoon or a full day.
Right.
And sometimes it's a couple of days, like if it's like a Beekman episode or something where you'll see me like not in the room, or I'm on green screen for part of it, I'm outside for part of it. That might take a couple of days. So a couple of intense days of shooting of like officially. We get there in the morning. There's a shot list. Shoot everything.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then I get that into spend a day. Nowadays, only a day. I used to spend like 2-3 days
Okay.
getting the material into the computer, editing it. Like by the way, I do like a ton of takes. Like I don't know if you can tell from this impromptu live situation, I'm not very good at like succinctly speaking. So, and somehow it's worsened when it's scripted and I know what I'm going to say, but I have to do it like 50 times.
Interesting. Right.
Acting. If you see my raw footage, I should put it up on like my videos might be 4 minutes, but like we literally shoot over 2 hours sometimes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I sit there, I pick by like that, the methodical way of like picking the right phrases from the right takes.
Mhm.
I build a rough cut and I get the video to this stage where it's completely, when I'm on camera, it's perfectly edited how it's going to be, but all the effects are missing and all the segments where it's just visuals are missing. I export that into like as a edited sort of thing.
Right.
AAF, it's called in Avid, as a sort of format with all the shots lined up into After Effects, and then I spend every waking moment until like the second 2 weeks
Oh my
just
gosh.
doing piece by piece effects. And like some things, even nowadays, I'm so like extreme about it. Like, and there's basically no moment where there isn't some After Effects treatment for it, like slight readjustment to the camera shot,
Right.
yet or whatever. Things like that. Everything. Oh yeah. I mean, I grade. I do a weird thing now where I grade the footage, not all the raw footage and not just the edit, but just the raw footage shots involved in the edit with a program called DaVinci Resolve
Okay.
Magic, and I find very powerful and very
Oh
like
wow.
built to how to make the live action stuff look good. And then After Effects, Blender, Synthize to track stuff. What else do I use? Yeah, I edit do the audio. Yes, at the last moment, as I'm like already late and I'm not sleeping, I do all the audio treatment and editing in Pro Tools. Like once the picture locked, it's like it is what it's going to be. Oh, something up here on screen just now because my cat pressed the button. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, I do audio mixing and putting music and sound effects in Pro Tools, and I'm passing out. I press a button to upload, and it's uploaded.
Full month. It sounds like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Basically, I'm taking it easy in the first half, and then just dying in the second half to get it done.
Jeez, man. Well, the quality does not lack at all, and that effort seems pretty obvious. I would say you're a perfectionist. Would you agree?
I suppose I never think that way about myself, but apparently, yeah, I can't leave things alone. Do you ever get that thing where you have a lot to do and you are working on like one shot, let's say, or you're working on a model or something, and you have other tasks, but you almost don't want to get to the next, or sorry, you finished, this is your last task of the day, and you just can't leave it alone because like stopping the process will be scary. Like
Yeah.
you'll
It'll be
something.
worse for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
have that thing where like the last part, I just can't stop doing it. I just can't stop tweaking it.
Yep. Yeah. That's when like 2-3 hours are just they disappear, and I didn't feel a second of it. Yeah. So a question that kind of is around that. What's your take on overcoming artistic fear and the perfectionist trap? Like, how do you just get it done, basically?
For me, very simply, like I said, this self-imposed deadline is what did it. It's very, very simple. I saw that I just don't get anything done if
Right.
it's open-ended. And I think most people are built that way, it sounds like.
Mhm.
I'm not a workaholic at all. Like, I'd rather be doing nothing, honestly. But the fact that I promised people something and the fact that it has a date stamp on it
Mhm.
is what drives me.
Right.
And I started my Patreon thing. I like made a big video and I said, I'm going to make a video a month. I promise you, in exchange for you choosing to support me financially. The end. I did it. It's done. There's nothing I can do. I have to do it now. And it's going to get simple really fast. You'll feel yourself internally motivated to just do it, no matter how relaxed and easygoing and lazy you might be.
Right.
Just like you you have to draw a line, and then that line is dictates.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. That is the truth. Okay, so we have someone asking, "Have you always been a skeptic person?" I'm glad we're going into this because what I didn't realize maybe until I started following your videos is that there is this sort of like skeptical philosophy enough to where like there are conferences, and another interesting connection is Hjalti Helmerson. That name so hard to pronounce, but for anyone, go ahead.
I thought I knew his name. I knew how to say his name perfect because he's told me, "Oh, you said it perfect," but then I've heard him say it, and it's not the way I say
He's
it.
just being nice. Man, yeah, that's so true. I'm glad we're calling him out on that. So if anyone of you don't know, he's like one of the best animators. He's at the Blender Institute and like single-handedly, I would say, leveled up, Blender animation in the short films. But so you met him at a Skeptic conference that I think even predates his real Blender usage, maybe.
Yes, it might. I don't remember us discussing Blender, or maybe I just couldn't understand what he was saying. No. He's more eloquent than me. Like I've listened to their podcast recently, and
He's a smart dude.
So someone actually on the chat here asked how I know James Randi, and James Randi is this legendary figure. He's like an older guy,
Yeah.
Really quite old Santa age person, who was like a big skeptic, critical thinker, like back in the day, and he would be on TV, just debunking psychics and embarrassing, whatever,
Right.
fortune and telekinesis people.
Right.
He sort of turned it into a whole movement essentially, and had a foundation called the James Randi Educational Foundation.
Okay.
That put on a conference annually called The Amazing Meeting, because his stage name, he was a stage magician.
Okay.
Back, called James the Amazing Randi. So the Amazing is as his moniker at The Amazing Meeting was like a conference for him, made by him.
Right.
So it's a big annual meetup of people who just like from anything from just science, straight up science stuff, to just trying to tell real from fake, and then increasingly sort of iffy world of people trying to, sometimes even there's an element of like consumer protection to it, a lot of companies creating products that don't work and whatnot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Advertising practices. So everything like that, generally speaking, tell real from fake, no work. Conference. So I've gone for a few years, or sorry, I'm telling this out of order. James Randi, right? The dude that organized all this, the sort of person many people see as a role model and a big, influence, saw my videos one day, early Captain Disillusion videos, and called me up and said, "I like your videos." And I knew who he was. I didn't, know too much about him, but I've seen his and he invited me, and the James Randi Educational Foundation happened to be in where I live, not too far.
Oh, wow.
Visited him in person, met him, and he told me about this conference. So I started, visiting it, among other things like that. Hjalti was there one day, like one year, is one of the people I met. You meet a bunch of people.
Right.
And he was just this dude, kind of like cool, nerdy guy into science and stuff. And I think he was thinking about animation at the time, but I'm not sure if he was already pursuing it, because I remember friends with him and seeing him like on Facebook or whatever, like taking courses and becoming better and better at things.
Right.
That's how I know him. And I suppose there's a connection. I don't think I figured out Blender or got introduced to Blender through him, but it was a nice synergy. Like I already knew someone in that world, and that's cool.
Right. Okay.
But that's how I was saying, like conferences like that and stuff is where I'm like had that little celebrity treatment where people have a segment of people that happen to gravitate toward the stuff I make.
Sure. Oh man, I'll bet you're a big name in that skeptic movement, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been fortunate recently to do a couple of talks at events like that. So that was fun. But at the same time, I'm just a fan of it myself. I'm not a published author or any kind of scientist or researcher. I don't know much, but I like the attitude, the philosophy, and I think it's in line with like what it's just I proselytize, is that's the word, like a small approach in a small situation, in a small venue
Right.
that has that attitude, just like telling real from fake
Yeah.
videos on the internet.
Right, right. What's interesting about that, I was thinking about you and the skeptical, and pairing that with VFX, and then you kind of confirmed it with Randy. What's his last name?
Randy is his
James
last name.
Randy. Got you. Is he was a stage musician or magician? Magician, right? And so then he does that professionally. You know VFX. You spent a lot of time learning VFX and like movie production, which is in a way to like present something fake to people. And he was a magician, and then like you end up kind of promoting the skepticism. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition, I would say, with what you do, because it's not an easy thing to get into visual effects and to learn the quality that you can do them at. So was that motivated by the idea to debunk, or do you get like is it fun for you also to like lose yourself to the fakeness, or you know, like what visual effects can make a person believe?
Yeah, it was just like a random convergence of two unrelated things seemed to work. I've never been like, I didn't grow up. I mean, I grew up, I guess, kind of skeptical, like in this, like the Soviet Union, like a very secular sort of like no nonsense society.
Okay.
That probably makes a difference. But like but I never cared about like, you know, what's real, what's true science and all that. But I was always an artsy person and a like creative person and a storytelling kind of inclined person.
Yeah.
But that comes with like learning the tools of storytelling and being kind of technical. And I found that I didn't find that too difficult. I found that I didn't find that too difficult. So with learning editing and visual effects, it's like it was scratching an itch to get into details and figure out how things work. So it's like somehow I'm artsy and technical at the same time. And when I Captain Disillusion was like a random result of that, when I wrote like a blog post that was explaining this video and later turned that blog post into a video. And so I didn't know there's a skeptical movement. James Randi saw it. Other people that like this kind of thing saw it. And I was introduced to critical thinking and skepticism through my randomly making my own videos and realizing there's a movement. Like, so it's just kind of, I guess that's the two sides of my brain that are now.
Yeah, I was, you know, obviously your videos like made me aware of that. I think I said that earlier, but it's cool to also be challenged even philosophically, like through your videos of debunking viral videos. There's a lot of facets to the channel that is, I don't know, really special.
It's funny because as I've done it for years, I've seen like a change in how the audience's attitude is. It used to be people were kind of gullible, and it felt like I do need to tell people this is fake, this is not real, this is how this is done. And now it's almost swung the other way, and all I see is on a daily basis, I turn on my Twitter, whatever, everyone is barraging me with messages of like, I think this is fake, and they're just showing me like a person juggling or doing some kind of cool parkour trick.
Right.
And people don't believe normal things anymore. They're just too suspicious.
Right.
It's almost a skill now in itself. Like I spend some videos explaining why you shouldn't be, why you can feel safe believing this thing is real because of this and this and this. I'm like explaining the opposite of what I used to explain.
Oh,
I mean,
interesting.
Side of the same.
Certainly. No, I really appreciate that part of it. So I could get probably lost talking to you for a while. I already have you. I told you it'd be an hour. We're 15 minutes over that hour. Could we run through some questions for like 15 more minutes?
Oh yeah, no, as long as you like.
Oh, okay, awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm gonna try and catch up with these. I got a little bit lost, but a question from Grant Wilk, who's Remington Graphics. I don't know if you've watched any of his tutorials on YouTube.
I'm not sure.
Okay, no. So what aspect do you feel that Blender and other CG tutorials usually miss out on? Because I'm sure you watched a lot.
Sorry, what tutorials?
Yeah, like what aspect of, or do you feel that Blender tutorials or just CG tutorials in general, they kind of miss the mark?
For me, I mean, with Blender, just selfishly, like as a consumer of them, I don't think I haven't seen a lot of very in-depth explanations of like the non-3D parts. I've seen tutorials on compositing nodes and stuff,
Yeah.
but like those other ones that people don't jump to, like the video sequence editor and
Right.
just that whole workflow. I have a weird like almost fetish for like workflow kind of videos, like Wayne has in the animation
Okay.
course. Here's how you set up the folders and things, and this is nested in this.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can never get to have too many of those, and people have different ways to set up their projects. Because I know how to make a toy bear or whatever. It's got to be like I'd like to know how does this fit into the overall picture of producing an animated piece.
Okay. That's really useful.
Sorry, you had that course with the about Piero that like where it went from start to end.
Oh, right.
That's like I love that kind of thing, but that's hard because you're covering everything.
Right. Right.
I think there could be more Blender tutorials about not modeling, not animation, but everything else.
Workflow. That's
Yeah,
good.
That's what Blender. I think the Blender Foundation, like Blender users, want it to be a well-rounded tool. So the tutorial content should probably
That's great.
rounded too.
No, that's really good feedback. Very good. A similar question from Zach in the same realm. Like, do you think making tutorials has made you a better Blender / After Effects user? The act of making them.
It would be nice to say yes, but for me personally, I think it's made me a better tutorial host, because I mean I told you that I do a lot of takes of just me saying goofy stuff for my web series. I do more takes, or essentially redos of my tutorials, because it's like I realize, man, I'm bad at explaining this, because the multitasking involved in doing the actual on work and talking in an engaging way is very difficult. So the practice of doing tutorials makes me a better tutorial presenter. But I've heard you say before where you don't remember what you did and you couldn't do it again when people ask questions. I feel that a lot. It's almost specifically like I have a thing in my brain. It also happens with topics in my videos where if I've addressed something, my brain is ready to let it go. Like I've done this. I don't want to see it or think about it anymore. And I forget things I've taught. So if anything, it's the opposite. If I did something, it's ready to leave my consciousness.
Oh man, that's a great way to describe it. Like once you achieve it and you teach it, your brain is ready to let it go. Oh my word, that resonates with me so much. So for me, he said this is for both of us, but like in my experience, doing it, I obviously do it like full time. And so spend a lot of time doing this stuff. And yeah, I get what you were talking about. Like, I will get a new idea. I will learn something new trying to teach something else. And I gotta record it ASAP or else it's going to leave me. And then, 2-3-year-old tutorials, I hate getting questions about them because I'm like, it means I have to go back and watch it and like get back in that mindset. I can't just give you the answer real quick. But yeah, I do learn a lot, but I mean, 3D to me is such a expansive topic and like what you can do with it, that it's hard to remember all of it in my experience. But anywho, on to the next, let's see. Question. Does Beekman watch the Captain videos?
I'm trying to remember. I wrote him one day and like inviting him. I didn't know if I never knew if he watched my videos or heard of me. And I think he didn't answer for a while, but then after a while, I think maybe he started watching them and then like realized he likes me and then agreed to do the thing. So maybe I just forced him to be a fan.
Biased fan. That's funny.
To your heroes, I guess, and like make them look at your stuff.
Right. So another one, which part, so I'm going to try and like rapid fire through these. Which part of the workflow do you like most? Writing, compositing, filming, etc.?
I mean, I like filming because it's like high intensity, and then I love that it's like over when it's over. Like I like a finished day of work because I know I've done something and I deserve to like feel relaxed for a bit. But I like the post-production. Obviously, it's the longest and most involved process, but it's like me in my brain and just like sometimes there's a time pressure, but I like just crafting. I mean, that's what we do when we're just using Blender, like sitting there and making something out of nothing. But you're just gradually like building something straight out of your brain. So I like the most
Yeah.
basic.
Right. I did want to comment on your writing because you say that does take about 2 weeks, and I think that's another aspect that's very that makes your videos stand out. Is I get lost in the narrative that you come up with, how all of it edits together, and like there's a lot of threads going on. So anyway, you do writing very well, and that's
I
impressive.
feel like I need to grow in that area, but I'm glad that happens.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Without
harder
a
and
doubt.
cooler.
Another question. Have you ever considered using a node-based compositor instead of After Effects? There are obviously pros and cons to both, but Jake Radcliffe prefers node-based generally.
I mean, I've tried to learn. I've watched a lot of tutorials and played with a Nuke.
Okay.
And Blender has done a lot to get me into the node-based mindset.
Right.
But I mean, it's not. It's something you have to know if you're going to be a professional compositor, definitely in the industry.
Right.
But my workflow of what I make, I find is not very conducive because, like Nuke, for instance, is very clearly made to just take one shot and like composite the crap out of it. Like you gotta. But if you want to string two things together, it's like the dumbest tool ever. You have to like type in numbers.
Interesting.
How many frames do you want to offset this and this? That's not for what I make. I need to be like, okay, now 5 circles should appear on the screen in this sequence. And then this right here, it's a lot of elements. And then it's going to go to a new shot. And this is going to be embedded in this. It's very time based.
Right.
And new nodes are great for like a lot of stuff all at once.
Right.
But if you want to string things along, you want timeline.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to describe it. I haven't used Nuke in years, or After Effects for that matter, but they were very different, and that resonates with me, like how I transferred between the two.
I look at it in After Effects right now. There's this little thing where if you like press spacebar or something or tab, it'll show you like a little node-looking thing that shows how comps are nested, and it's like we have nodes. It looks like. But they just add nodes for when you want to get fancy. Maybe
right. Okay. I enjoyed After Effects quite a lot when I had transitioned. I was skeptical to do it, but then really enjoyed it afterwards. Let's see.
Flavor of the month.
Is there a video you've given up on because the CGI involved was too difficult?
Well, I've postponed things, but no, I never started a video and like completely bailed. I bail on ideas a lot, and like I have scripts where I like half started it and then I give up, or sometimes a topic like I'm not so confident about what I'm talking about. And I find that it's very difficult to come back to a half-started idea. I'm actually trying to do that right now, and I'm like having a hard time. It just feels like a half-eaten apple or something. Like I know I did this, but it's just like I don't like it now.
Yeah.
I feel like I stopped for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but no, if I shot it and if I'm working on the effects, like just it's got to be done. Like that thing kicks in where you just have to realize it's better to just make it at some level that you're happy with rather than like try to be a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Give up on it. Like things are better off existing. Like the audience will appreciate it.
Right. That's a great quote. Things are better off existing. Let's see. Well, this isn't a. Let's see. Someone has to leave, but he wants to say thank you. He was introduced to you first, a new follower here, so thank you to you. And yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. We might be getting close. How did you come up with the name Captain Disillusion?
It was made up on the spot in that, like I said, I wrote, it was like a blog article on MySpace or something back way back.
MySpace.
And I just like made it up because that's as a made up kids show. Like it was written in that voice, and I just thought, what is he gonna? It's like something you say like blurred out as you sarcastically pretend to be a host of a show, and that's completely on a whim.
Right. Wow, your whim has turned into something pretty good.
You just have to force it on people until they feel like like you said, like it's iconic. Iconic is just you never doing anything else, and people just start feeling like it must be good, it must be something.
Yeah, that's all it is. So, a question: is there anything you do daily? And I would guess that this is in the context of like a lot of artists, get in the habit of discipline, doing something daily to grow. That's what I would guess he's asking about.
I can't, not really, not specifically like consciously, but because the nature of now how I make my stuff, and there's always a time pressure. There's always something to do, but like in that first week or two when I'm just trying to figure stuff out, I don't do anything with Blender, with anything visual, because maybe I should. I don't know, but it's like I find I have to be in two different modes. I have to be in this dreamy sort of idea stage, because I've learned from film school days and stuff that it's important not to, like, if you're going to be a screenwriter for someone else, a lot of young screenwriters make the mistake of like micromanaging what the image is and all that, and you can't be an artist of that sort when you're a writer. When you're a writer, what's important is like the mechanics of what's driving the things, the story, the things,
Yeah.
and you want to leave it open. So I'm almost like two people. So when I'm not an artist, I have to leave it open. So I don't want to like come up with all the, he's going to walk through this door and this is the angle. I'm leaving it open, and then I engage that other part of my brain.
Okay.
And
Yeah. I imagine, yeah, I mean, when you think about a film and like, I guess a big budget film or probably even small budgets, like how many people are involved, it's a little crazy that you're able to shift those gears being the same person.
yeah, I'm having to do, but it'll be so nice when I learn to work with other people and I just, and,
Right. Let's see here. Do you also perform magic tricks? I've seen magic show up occasionally.
that was when I was really little. That was the first thing I wanted to be, I think.
Okay.
Like that, because I grew up, my parents were circus performers in Russia,
Right. Okay.
and around magicians and illusionists.
Mhm.
Also, that's something I liked, but that was like a real early childhood thing.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's like I always have, as like, you have toys and knickknacks around your desk. I don't know if you do, but
Yeah.
you have things, and like a lot of it is decks of cards that I just like play around with and try to do tricks and sleights of hand. I'm not gonna do it now, sorry. But that's one of the things. Yeah, I don't know. I always, in some weird back of my mind, the person who's like ready to run away, take a suitcase, and give up on everything. I'm imagining that I could be like a street or restaurant magician or something if everything else crashes and burns.
That's a solid backup to have. Yeah. So with that, like, what are your hobbies? Someone else asked, do you like play video games or do you watch TV? Yeah. What are the other things you
Yeah,
enjoy
I mean,
doing?
my hobbies are lazy. I'm not much of a gamer, but I have a PS3. I use it to watch Blu-rays mostly. I
Sure.
like to watch movies. I just like to hang out.
Yeah.
Kind of boring. I mean, I don't know if every creative person is boring. The more exciting the thing they make, the more boring they are in real life. But I think it's true for me. Like, I'm kind of the opposite of many of the aspects of me and my stuff that I show. It's like, imagine an individual that is the opposite of everything of that, and that is me. It's like motionless, quiet. I spend weeks sometimes like just saying like 5 words,
Yeah.
like to my significant other, like whatever. Yeah. Quiet, calm existence.
Right. Well, you're so theatrical in your performance in your videos. Like when I just met you, like, sort of through the first time talked to you a few minutes before the stream started, and like you weren't that way. You're very down to earth, very humble, and not sarcastic in your face. You really get into character well.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a good outlet for that, because I mean, I think in my mind I'm like that a bit, but we all have that sarcastic or
Sure.
brave voice of some sort that is nothing like what we end up
Yeah.
externalizing. But it's fun to do it artificially, and I'll watch my stuff and I'm like, that's not sarcastic enough. That's not. I'm being too much me,
Yeah.
and it's bigger and crazier. It's been interesting to kind of peripherally learn acting and performing, which I've never really formally done.
Oh wow.
you can see, I mean, if there's a weak point in my videos to be self-critical, it's that. It's like I always imagine performers and actors looking at that and thinking, well, it's all nice or whatever, but it's such a pathetic half performance.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be better, on camera and whatever, but there's only so many things you can really get better at,
Man,
you know.
well, I know that I've only said positive things, but like I'm not an actor, but I feel like when I detect bad acting, like I cannot watch it and I have to turn it off. And that's not the case for you. I would say you do quite well for not being formally trained. So
There is hope.
there is hope. Here's a good question. If you could sit down to dinner with any person, who would it be?
I know this young lady too. She did a live stream of her own where she did like a makeup thing, a body paint thing as Captain Disillusion. So
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Sorry. So now
That's
I was
great.
thinking about that as the question was being read. If you could sit down to dinner with any person, who would it be? Gosh, I don't know. Like a famous person, an iconic figure of some sort. Don't know. I guess, I mean, it's a meme at this point that I'm like, when we're talking about filmmaking and movies and directors, I'm always like talking about how much I like Robert Zemeckis and his movies. Probably him. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, or any, like a bunch of film directors. I would like to pick the brains of, Martin Scorsese or something.
Oh yeah. Hey, that's a good choice. You can't go wrong with that.
Because I think film directors are the most, like, it's like what I mean, aside from just like kind of aspiring to be that professional ultimately in my best of all possible worlds.
Yeah.
I think that's like by nature of their work, they have to be the most well-rounded individual to understand different aspects of filmmaking and storytelling. And a lot of them are very technical. I'm sure like James Cameron, J.J. Abrams can talk to VFX artists and animators in a language they can understand. Like they know. So I think it would be a very interesting dinner conversation.
I would say so. Very good choice. Oh man, well, it is. I'm gonna let you go. I've kept you 30 minutes longer than I said I would. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Captain Dissolution, for being here. Alan, really appreciate you taking the time for this. And look him up. I mean, if you aren't sold by now that you need to be watching his stuff, you should be. So check him out. Google him. You can't miss him. You will not regret it. Just incredible content out there. Setting a really good bar.
If you're not subscribed, if you're interested in 3D animation and Blender, and you're not a subscriber of cgcookie.com, and you're just freeloading on YouTube and watching this, you should check it out and maybe consider. I mean, I watch the tutorials among other websites. This is a really good one, and I think you guys should check it out.
That is extremely kind of you, sir. Thank you very much. And but I did want to just throw it in there for publicly. If you're into tutorials, we happen to be in that business, and it'd be pretty sweet if we could collab sometime. Just a thought. Throw it out there.
Yeah. I mean, it would be an honor. It's very intimidating. I mean, on some level, this whole experience has been like, I'm trying to be all chill, but because I know you from being this instructor in tutorials that I am sitting there watching and learning, I do feel this like professorial student relationship. Like you are not a peer, you're a superior. So I've been somewhat intimidated, and it's very nice to be able to talk to you in this casual way. But like I put a lot of reverence to things you say and things you teach, because I learned, I would say you, among anyone, when it comes to Blender, I've probably learned the most of the technicalities and things from your tutorials in particular. So
well, now it's just getting awkward. Thank you. That that means a ton. So thank you. I better shut it off before I get all emotional. But thank you guys for being here. I will see you next week. And I don't know, maybe I'll twist your arm and try and get you on again at some point. But awesome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You have a good one, sir.
Bye.
Oh, shoot.